Elliot Ditmars, Salamander Consultant. Part 1. Jasmine is curious. Jasmine paused and looked around the park. She was supposed to meet a guy named Elliot. She didn't normally take on private clients. Most of what she did was corporate work. But she'd agreed to meet with Elliot as a favor for her friend Alexander. He'd bailed her out of a weird snake sneaker situation a few months ago, and she owed him one. As it turned out, she had a couple of hours between readings this afternoon and had agreed to meet Elliot here in the park. It was a relatively safe space. It was public and there were good sight lines, so even if this guy Elliot turned out to be sketchy, she'd be okay. Jasmine saw an empty bench near a fountain and she took a seat. Within a few minutes, she was approached by a college-aged young man in glasses who looked as if he was looking for somebody. Jasmine stood up. "Are you Elliot?" she asked. "Ah, Jasmine," he asked. "It's nice to meet you." They shook hands and Jasmine gestured to the bench, encouraging him to sit. "No thanks," he said. "I've been sitting all morning." He looked Jasmine over in a critical way, like he was evaluating what to say next, not in a creepy way. "My friend Alexander tells me that you're the best tarot reader he knows," he said finally. Jasmine smiled in a confident way, as if to assure him that this was the case, but she wasn't going to say it out loud. She raised her eyebrows and shrugged slightly. It was at times like this when Jasmine wished she could raise one eyebrow. She had good eyebrows, and it would have made for a good effect. The kid, who'd been making good eye contact up till now, shifted his gaze slightly and said, "You have pretty eyebrows." This took Jasmine, who was not easily rattled, slightly off guard. "Why would you say something like that?" she asked, and then added, "And thank you." "See," Elliot said, spreading his hands as if she'd just proved a point for him. "That's my problem. I like to think I'm a smart guy. I notice when I mess up or say or do the wrong thing. Just now, I noticed that you're very pretty and you've done a good job with your eyebrows. But from the way you just reacted, I can tell that that was the wrong thing to say. I've made a mental note not to compliment a woman's eyebrows in the future, but I couldn't tell you what my actual mistake was. My problem," he continued, "is that I'm smart and observant, but somehow life has a way of always taking me by surprise. It's usually nothing big, like an explosion or anything." "You aren't going to explode, are you?" Jasmine assured him that she would not. "And I've seen a bunch of specialists, and nobody seems to have the answer. Although one psychologist was really pleased when I brought him a potted cactus. We could both tell right away that it was the wrong thing to have done when you meet a new shrink for the first time, but neither of us could figure out exactly why." Jasmine grunted in sympathy and indicated that Elliot should probably sit down. This time he did. He sat silently for a moment or two, and Jasmine waited patiently for him to continue. "So, I've been doing a lot of reading," he went on, eventually. "What do you know about Asian religions?" he asked Jasmine. "Not a huge amount," she admitted, "but I've done some reading too." Elliot nodded. "Okay, and let me say first that I know I've probably got a sideways understanding of this. We've established that I can't seem to get a grasp on my own culture." "So noted," Jasmine said. She'd been a little worried about this meeting taking too long and throwing her afternoon schedule off, but at this point she was thoroughly hooked. "So," Elliot continued, apparently nervous about sharing whatever it was that he was about to say. Jasmine just sat patiently with a hint of a Mona Lisa smile and waited for him to continue. Elliot laced his fingers together and put his hands behind his head. He leaned back and looked at the sky, which seemed to center him. "Okay," he said eventually, "this is what I'm thinking. What if the Buddhists and the Hindus are right about reincarnation?" he asked. "The whole thing about being born and reborn over and over until you nail existence, and then you move on to a new form." Jasmine nodded. "With you so far," she said. "What if," Elliot asked, and I know I'm looking for a simple answer for what has to be a complicated situation, but what if I absolutely crushed it as whatever I was in my past life, and the reason for all this," he gestured vaguely with his hands at the world around him, "what if the reason I can't figure any of this out is because this is my first time around as a human?" He paused and watched Jasmine apprehensively, waiting to see if she was going to judge him. She sat quietly for a full minute or two, leaning her head from side to side as she considered the implications of Elliot's theory. "I think," she said finally, and Elliot shot to his feet to hear her judgment, "I think that this makes a certain amount of sense, cosmically speaking." Elliot breathed a sigh of relief. Jasmine thought for another few seconds, then reached into her bag and pulled out a worn deck of tarot cards wrapped in a silk scarf. She unwrapped the cards, cut the deck, and then shuffled them 2 or 3 times against her thigh. She handed the deck to Elliot and asked him to cut it. He did so. Jasmine laid out 9 cards in a grid, examining each one carefully in turn. "What do those cards mean?" Elliot asked. "Not important," she said. "Well, not to you anyway. They're just giving me some background information." She turned the deck face down and fanned them out in front of Elliot. "This is the important one. For you, anyway." Elliot reached out, but stopped just short of actually touching any of the cards. He looked to Jasmine for reassurance, and she smiled and nodded. He took a deep breath and pushed a few cards aside and chose one from not quite the middle of the deck, then took a step backwards. Jasmine flipped the card face up. Elliot was silent for a moment. I'm not familiar with that one," he said. Jasmine frowned. "Yeah, it's a new one for me too," she said.
Today's drink is subtle. I don't know if you've picked up on this yet, but I don't do subtle very often. But have you ever been walking across a parking lot on a really hot day and it starts to rain, and that fresh smell of rain that comes up from the pavement? It's something called petrichor. It is produced by bacteria in the soil, and it turns out humans are really, really locked into that scent. And you can actually buy petrichor, that bacteria smell, suspended in essential oils. Now, it's not clear if the actual bacteria is okay for human consumption. It probably is, but the bigger issue is the oil that it's suspended in. You can buy this on the internet through essential oil companies. So what I'm doing here is I'm painting the outside of the glass that we're using for this cocktail. Ideally, you want to leave an inch or so unpainted near the rim, just to protect your beautiful and delicate lips. And, okay, let's put that away. Now, the idea here is that our drink will have the smell of fresh rain. Super subtle. So we need to use some ingredients that are also super subtle. So we're going to use a cherimoya. You probably know this better as a star fruit. Now look what happens when you cut it here to the side. Longitudinally, it forms a beautiful star. So here, let's take a big slice there, and we'll set that aside for garnish. I know I don't normally do garnish on a cocktail, but in for a penny, in for a pound. Okay, so what we're going to do now is set that aside. In our cocktail shaker, instead of ice, we're going to use frozen juice. Okay, what kind of juice are you saying? Frozen starfruit juice. Okay? An ounce of it. Okay? I've measured, I've frozen. The idea is this will chill our drink just like regular ice, but it won't dilute it. Starfruit is delicious, but it is not strongly flavored. It has a delicate, dare I say, subtle taste. Okay, and now we're adding 2 ounces of fresh starfruit juice. Yep, that's nice. Basically, I took 4 or 5 starfruits and really went to town on them in my blender and then strained them. And now I'm taking the coldest vodka I have. It's been living in the freezer. And I'm pouring out an equal amount, 2 ounces of colder than ice. I was going to say ice cold, but this is actually colder than that. Vodka. And you want to use some pretty good vodka. Generally, there's not a lot of difference in taste between vodkas, but at the bottom end of affordability, sometimes you get some off flavors. For this, you want the cleanest, most delicate flavor you can get. Okay, so by shaking that, I've got a nice chilled glass now. By shaking that until the ice stops making a noise, we've got a perfect 3-to-2 ratio of starfruit juice to vodka. And we don't need to strain it. We just pour it directly into a stemmed glass. Martini glass is probably perfect for this. Yep, what the heck? Let's put the garnish on there. And the reason for the stem on a cocktail glass is so that your hands don't warm it up too much, too fast. This drink is meant to be sipped over maybe 20 minutes because as I'm tasting it right now, it's delicious. It's starfruit with a little bit of a zip, but now I'm doing what you don't normally do. I'm warming it with my hands a little bit. And as it warms, it's giving off a small scent of rain. And the longer we sit there having important conversations, the more we'll be enveloped by the smell of falling rain.
For rain, beautiful rain, don't disturb, beautiful rain. Oh, come, never come. Oh, come, never come. Oh, come to me, beautiful